Hello there, welcome back. This is another of my attempts at a live stream. um, we're still early days, give it time for me to get used to everything. Basically, today I'm going to be talking about three films. One's called Big Time Gambling Boss, one's called Project Wolf Hunting, and one's called Narvik. So these are three films I've seen recently that I thought were worth talking about. Now, the Big Time Gambling Boss is one of the new Radiant films releases. That's one of the first ones that was released on his big debut, and it's wonderful. And I adore like these kind of 70s, 60s, 70s Yakuza films anyway. I'm a total sucker for them. I just think they're great. They've just got a style to them, a cynicism to them. It's not overdone. It's just like I can taste the world that's very unsentimental, that's very much looking at how these people operate in a world that where you have to really be careful to survive, where there's lots of rules and lots of difficulties, and you have to be very careful when these Yakuza worlds to survive because even though everyone says they deal with honor, a lot of the time they're actually dealing with their own greed behind the wall of I'm an honourable person. That's what they're about really. That's just the the situation that's we've got with these films is they're actually just people who are hiding behind the codes that we all say are important to us. That's what gangsters do. If you see most gangster films, they always tend to have this thing. We have a code of honor, and a lot of time it's nonsense. A lot of time it's if you don't want to, you wouldn't be a criminal in the first place. And this one takes to the hierarchy of that of your whole foundation is built on these kind of lies, and they're instrumental to how you operate in the world. Is you have to appear to have honor, while there's a lot of greed running under the surface. And there's a lot of people who believe the lie as well. A lot of people think their way of getting through being a gangster is to believe they still have some honor. It's just doing a illicit business. And this film, as it goes on, shows how completely false that is. That's just not the case. So, its central character is someone who actually does have the inklings of honor. He is trying to live up to the lie that um, they force on people. Basically, he's a guy who's within this Yakuza gambling family who is the reasonable one. He's a reasonable guy. He's one of the people that people rely on for have the kind of have the opinion that's logical and focused, and he understands all the rules within this organization, and it's how he navigates when his the Yakuza boss has a stroke and obviously cannot run the the operation anymore. He just there's no way he can run this. He's now out. It's like, we need a successor. He's not dead, but he's willing to give up the thing because it's like the this Yakuza family needs a boss who can protect him. So that's the situation. This underlying, basically, general of the Yakuza has to deal with is like it has to help them choose a successor, and there's a variety of people with their own opinions. There are quite a few people want him to be the successor because he's so even tempered. It's like, well, look at him. He's the guy who you could trust to keep this thing going because it's a good gravy train they've got. I mean, they're doing well, but some people don't want him, and he himself takes him. He takes himself out of the race because he points out he originally came from a different gang. He left a gang from a different city to come here and was given help to resettle, and he's worked for this gang for decades. But now it's like because he came from somewhere else, he's not a natural person to start in the gang. So he says, "I can't be a leader. There's no way," which plays into his enemy's hands, really. So they're trying to find a compromise leader. Now, the person that should be the leader, the person who would naturally become the leader if everything going wrong, if the guy died or was injured, the one person who would be the leader naturally is this guy who's in jail. And it's a case of, well, we can't have him because he's in jail. But the level-headed guy says, well, if we overlook him, it'll lead to problems down the line because he will be getting out of jail. And if he's been passed over, there's going to be issues. They say, no, we'll deal with that. We'll deal with that later on. And they get a compromise candidate, a guy who everyone thinks is okay, but no one's that enthused about, really. It's like all the better candidates are gone. But everyone thinks, we can work with this guy. He's not great, but if he has enough advisors, he can come into the role and he'll be fine. And the plotters within who have different ideas think that we can manipulate this guy to do what we want. So everyone's now got their fingers in the pie for how to manipulate this one person into what they want. Of course, the drama comes when the gangster who was passed over gets out of jail because he's like, wait a second, I was passed over for this guy who isn't as experienced as I am, who doesn't have the knowledge that I have. Like, you didn't just make him a temporary until I got out. You actually made him the leader. That's ridiculous. And that's what starts off the problems. Because even though the lead character understands the frustrations, you also understand you need a leader. And if you're not the leader, you have to go under who the leader is. But at the same time, he's the one who's viewed as the guy who has to keep his friend, who's the passed over guy, in line. And that's not going to happen. This guy's not going to stop. He's going to keep going and cause havoc throughout. And he's got underlings who are loyal to him, even if they're not particularly great at their job. And the film is about the chaos that follows this decision and all the manipulations of what people want from the gang's future. Like, some people want them to end into partnership with these other people. Other ones want them to stay independent. So there's lots of things that no one can openly discuss. There's actually the thing driving a lot of this drama forward. Or in a way that within the confines of what's viewed as polite in the gang, it's actually stopping them from actually discussing things in a way that's actually going to be helpful. And it means everyone's got a point of view, but no one can be heard totally clearly because everyone has to go through the gang protocol of, you're meant to do this, you're meant to do that, you're meant to be this way. And that becomes the thing that actually becomes a miscommunication area where basically people go for the rules rather than, if we ignore that, if we put it aside for a second and actually have a discussion, we maybe will sort something out, but no, it's like it's not going to be sorted. And even if they didn't do that, there's a good chance it wouldn't be sorted because they passed over someone who done it. And the whole drama is about, does this person who earned it and who was passed over, does he go too far? Or is his race justified? And also, is the actions of the Yakuza family gambling group justified in retaliation against this guy as things get out of control? And we have a lead character stuck in the middle, having to try to choose between his friends and his business partners. And there's no way out. No matter what he does, it's going to go to hell. It's a very satisfying film. It's written by the guy who wrote the first 4 battles for Humanity or Honor. And it's very much in that vein of, you can't trust anybody ultimately. People are going to lie to your face using old codes and old ways of behaviour. And it's just basically about the sense of utility in Japanese culture. We've got old modes of behaviour, and how do you, in a modern world, how do you actually use that or avoid having it crush you because the modern world has changed and it doesn't really fit in anymore. It's just a wonderful film. It really is beautiful. The acting's terrific. The action when it comes is brutal. And just the overall sense of you're watching a film that understands everyone's flawed in this situation. Everyone's got their own reasons, and no one can both see the full picture or if they can see a lot of the full picture, they can't act in a way that's decisive to get it sorted. So either they're so trapped to passions, or they don't have the strength to actually push through, or don't have the ambition to push through. So it's a bit all these different levels of human failure and human miscommunication, how it interacts. So it becomes less about Yakuza and much more about how the modern life works in society, where basically you have old structure of behavior, you have new structure of behavior. It's how do you operate with your friends, how do you operate within your own conscience, and how do you just operate within society and try and not make a mess of things? Because as you know in life, people make a mess of things all the time. So it is a Yakuza film about these gangsters, but it's also you can also compare it to life as well, because I'm making decisions that you can understand in other contexts too. But you also you have the Yakuza stuff, which is fun to watch, especially the 70s, 60s, 70s Yakuza stuff, because it was so well done and so dramatic. So this is a high recommendation for Big Time Gambling Boss. A lot of people have already covered it in videos before me. It's just that I had stuff going on when it came out. So this is me finally getting to it. It is a wonderful, wonderful film. So next, I'm going to Project Wolf Hunting, which is a bizarre one. This one's insane. This one's utterly insane. It's hard to describe because it's such a cliched plot, but the joy of the film is actually in the execution, in the excess of the film, in the craziness of what it does and how it does it. Because the plot is very basic. All these gangsters who were wanted in South Korea have been picked up around Asia and are getting transported back to South Korea to either face prison sentences or face a trial. And it's like a case of, okay, we're bringing these back and we're actually going to try them for their various crimes against South Korea. So you've got a full bunch of crazies who are actually on the ship, on this big, like, this big ship that's actually just a transport ship with lots of, usually just transports cargo, but the cargo here are the humans. So they're all in these little compartments lower in the ship. They're all like handcuffed up. There's cops everywhere watching them. Everybody's waiting for these few boring days as they go from A to B. Because they tried flying them in, but there was suicide bombers at the airport and stuff. So now they're just using a boat. Of course, they're going to try and escape. And the first half is basically Con Air. Is that you've got all these super criminals, you've got all these cops watching them, and the criminals are working at the escape plan because one of them actually has a plan. And it's the slow winding of the situation to get to this plan so he can escape and he can bring everyone else with him. And the villain who does this is a great fun character. He's full of tattoos, he's sneering, he's nasty, he's exactly the kind of villain you want to see in this kind of film. It's someone you want to see die horribly. But he's smart enough to actually know what he's doing. And there's lots of other colourful criminals in the group as well to keep you interested. So the whole first hour is really the setup. You find out they bring along doctors to make sure everyone's okay. They bring along lots of cops so that there's always people on watching them, so no one can escape. And basically, it all goes to hell because no matter what they do, the first hour you're actually seeing all the different things they've got planned to avoid these criminals escaping, and then you've seen how the criminals get around it, and eventually the criminals escape, which is not a surprise with this setup, and they get control of the ship. Now, so far, so cliched. You're thinking, well, this is a kind of a normal film, and normally the South Koreans are more like inventive with the films. Well, this one doesn't get inventive. This one gets stupid, but gloriously stupid. So it turns out in the bottom level that they're transporting someone else, another prisoner no one knows about, who has powers and is also psychotic, and he's been alive since World War II. he was experimenting on during World War II, and he's mentally damaged. So they just keep him in this cage, and he's trapped. And during the prison escape on the boat, they put all the bodies in this area, which is for to freeze the food, just to keep the bodies out of the way. The blood, before everyone freezes, the blood drips down from that through the drain, and it ends up dropping onto the guy. And of course, because he's a crazy, the blood sets him off. He escapes, and he starts tearing the ship apart and killing people one after another in the most brutal ways possible. Now, this film has no pretensions of being anything other than a 80s throwback. It's a film that takes great joy in practical effects and having buckets of blood going everywhere. I mean, basically, anytime you go out, you see a location, it's going to be covered in blood like 2 minutes later. I'm not exaggerating. You know, it's on par for blood with the Evil Dead remake or any of the Evil Dead films for insane amounts of gushing blood everywhere. And it's glorious how much joy the director takes in having as much blood seen as possible. And having throats ripped out, the creature punches through people's chests until it rips a heart out. People are cut in half, arms are ripped off. It just goes on and on. So you have a whole bunch of prisoners. You have some female prisoners as well, female guards. And basically, it's a very quick whittling down of the criminals and the cops to who can survive with this thing just going. So these people are still shooting at each other, but also have to deal with this creature they can't kill. And it's a riot. It's just fun. There's nothing that's, intellectual here. It's just fun. It's just a absurd film about a creature that's absolutely going to murder everything in its path. You get a lot of backstory, which basically allows them to bring in other, people onto the ship to get killed. So once they've run out of the first layer of victims, plots are there just to bring other people on board, and then other people, and it just keeps on going. And I don't know what the death count in this film is, but it's insane. I mean, it's like pretty much everybody who's in this film dies in a horrible way. There's very few who survive. It's just wonderful. It's just so silly, so deranged, so bizarre, but beautifully done. I mean, I had a ball with this film. I mean, the plot's not worth anything, but the first half builds slowly, and you get an idea of who everyone is. They're all one-dimensional characters, but that doesn't matter. That just allows them to actually be murdered in horrible ways, and you don't feel guilty about how horrible their deaths have been. It just makes them more enjoyable. And then when it gets, because all the deaths are cartoonish, when it gets to the deaths, when it gets to brutal deaths, you have a whale of a time with some of the stuff, because it is pure Chuck Jones meets Sam Raimi. That's what the feeling of the film is. And it's just wonderful. I mean, it's just a hilariously dark comedy, brutal pulp thing. It's just great. I don't have much more to say, but just go see it. It's available all over on streaming things in different areas, depending on where you're in the world. But if you have a VPN, you can find it. So yeah, that's really something. Final film is Narvik, which is a film that's about first Norwegian war effort against the Nazis in World War II, and it's set in 1940, and it's about this place called Narvik, which was a location that both the Allies and the Germans wanted, because its main operation helped them with their war effort. So both sides wanted Narvik as a area to control, which would help them with the war effort. But as the war's breaking out and the Germans and British are going to fight each other, Narvik is in the middle of this messy thing, this messy situation. So, both sides have to have interest. The Germans take over Narvik straight away. They're the first people to move, even though they've got both sides have been negotiating there, and both sides have deals to avoid any violence in this area. The Germans break the truce. They take over Narvik, and of course the Norwegians are not very happy with this. They'd rather be neutral. They do not want this war. It's like to them this is not our war. But Norway is getting invaded, and they have to deal with it, and so they have to live under occupation. And the film takes place looking at a family, how they survive this war. Or basically, you have the mother, who's your mother, your young son, and the father. The father's in the army, and he is an engineer, and he works in various places, mining places, and is an engineer. So he knows how a lot of stuff works in the area. So before he did the national service or whatever, went into the army, he did all that stuff, so he knows how all that things work. And basically, you're following him during the war. He tries to get back to his family and watching how his family survives during the war at the same time. And his wife, because she can speak various languages, is very important to the Germans because they need someone to be able to talk to the mayor and actually get him to do things for them. So she gets stuck near the Germans. And of course, because she helps the British escape head on, they use that against her. The British use that to blackmail her into actually getting them information they need to coordinate the attack on Narvik from the British. So she's trapped between these two sides, even though she's trying to survive the war. Plus, everyone knows her husband was rebelled and ended up fighting against the Nazis, so that doesn't help her. And as you go through the thing with the husband's actually as a prisoner of war for a while, and is actually having to move stuff for the Germans in horrific conditions. As the film goes on, you get how the stories develop. She has to make some decisions which haunt her. The husband escapes the POW camp and helps the resistance of Norwegian soldiers to fight and to hook up with French soldiers before France falls to try and reclaim Narvik for the Allies, and basically to help the people escape from the Germans, because a lot of the people could not escape to Sweden when the Germans attacked. It's like give them a chance to escape over the water and get to safety. Because the early part of it is people try to get to safety, and quite a lot of them failed, and so they're stuck in the town, including the wife. And so it is a story of them trying to survive the war. It's a good film. It's not in the same level as Army of Shadows, or some of those brutal films you get about the World War II. It's not even the same level as Soldier of Orange or Black Book, which is Paul Verhoeven's films about World War II, which are also terrific. And even they're not the same level as Army of Shadows. But this one's good. It's just that because you're getting a different location for a war movie, which is Norway, and a lot of it takes place in snow, and a lot of it takes place in very harsh, snowy conditions. That's very unusual and very different. But most of the stuff you see in the film isn't new. It's stuff you've seen in other films before. It's done very well, but there's nothing there that's unique and different from films you've seen before. There's not, like, it's one of those films you're always hoping to kick up that final notch to go from being good to great and find those weird things that no one else would think of that would make it a unique film. It never has that. But what it does have is good acting and good situations. There's a time where the wife has to betray someone to save her son, and you thought, okay, this is going to be something that's going to be really important in the rest of the film. And it is important, but it's not dramatically as important or as damaging as you'd want. It feels underplayed a little bit. And that's the problem with the film, is lots of stuff set up. You think, this should be really important. I want to see what they do with this. This could be really fascinating. And what they do with it is they just tend to jump time, and you feel there's lots of scenes that would have been interesting to see the reactions and aftermath of things that you don't see. And by the time you go back to the story, the people have kind of got over it. So you feel you're missing about a third of the drama there. And it's just like it doesn't quite jump up and do things that are completely unique to the situation. It is based in fact, and I think they do cover quite a lot of what happened. But there's some things that are, you know, could have been more interesting. The ending's a bit of a disappointment because you get the big ending of them retaking the town, and then when you get to the re-meeting of the husband and wife, it's a bit of an anticlimax. It's like it's almost like they didn't really know what they want to do. Those scenes, they knew how they want to end the film, but they weren't quite sure how to get there, and it just feels like it slips from one thing to another, and it's not like satisfyingly done. Well, the actors are trying their best, but it just feels it's very clunky in the dialogue of it and the decisions they make to get to the ending. It just feels the worst parts last like 5-10 minutes, which is a bit of a problem because that's what you leave the film with, is the clunky ending. And there's just other things in between where there was lots of interesting things, and then it wasn't quite built up on. Like, that's a film that would have much better had another like 40 minutes. It's actually released on Netflix. I really wish they'd done 40 minutes because everyone was cast right. You just feel that there's more scenes there that could have been expanded upon and made it feel more epic and make it feel much more draining. And it would have just have given you more to work with to get invested within the story, and you don't really get that. So it's very frustrating to see. So that's kind of the disappointment I have with this film, is like it's good, but it could have been great if they had more time in the script, because the script's the thing that lets it down. It's well directed, it's really well acted, everything's there. It just feels it needs more work in the script to rise up another level, which it doesn't get. So it's a bit of a shame because it could have been better, and it deserved to be better. And especially some of the big time gambling boss, which has an absurd name, but it's so much more sophisticated than Narvik is. Narvik is actually a more immediate, interesting story, but it's not done as well as some of the big time gambling boss, which had a much more, a story you've seen before, but it's done so well. So there's just a difference in execution, which is a big thing. So that's the 3 films I was covering today. I've got other films I'm going to cover. I'm going to cover Fat City soon. I'm also going to cover Wise Blood is my idea. If I haven't watched Wise Blood for a while, so I'm going to have to watch that first. And there's a bunch of other films I've got that I'm watching just now for more videos. So I hope you enjoyed this one. This was just an impromptu video. I'm just trying to get more in the habit of doing stuff like this and see where it goes. I might go back to just shooting videos and put them up, or I might do this way. I'm not sure. I'm just trying it out and seeing how it feels. I'm still getting used to talking live as I do this. That still is a bit weird to me. I'm so used to just talking to myself in the camera, and that's it. Not having a chance of anyone seeing it as it goes out. So that's still a bit weird. But we'll see how it goes. Seems to be going pretty well so far. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back with another one soon. Bye for now.